everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to talk about one of my favorite poems, that is My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. Before we delve into this poem, we should have a little bit knowledge about the time when Browning was writing as well as about the poet Robert Browning. Well, Robert Browning did not receive much education when he was growing up. Though he had a library at his home and he was mostly educated at his home only. At the age of 17, Browning decided that he would take up poetry writing as a profession. In 1833, Robert Browning published a poem anonymously that is titled Pauline. Then he visited Italy and he started publishing writings under his own name. In 1842, Robert Browning published a collection that is called Dramatic Lyrics. So here he experimented with the form of poetry. He blended poetry as well as drama. Robert Browning married Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and these two people had a long courtship before they got married. After marriage, they shifted to Italy. Elizabeth's family did not approve of the wedding, and that's why they cut all the connections. Robert Browning and Elizabeth Barrett Browning shared a very stable and a very beautiful relationship. And they had a son whom they named Robert Barrett Browning, and he was nicknamed Pen. In 1861, Elizabeth Barrett Browning passed away and Robert Browning returned to England, and there he began editing and publishing the works of his wife. When Browning was writing, it was the Victorian period in England. So Victorian poetry is very different from the poetry of the previous era, that is Romantic poetry. Romantic poetry can be categorized in a particular way, but Victorian poetry cannot be categorized. This era is mostly the era of novels. And this was also the time when England was growing politically very fast in the colonies, and also this was the time where we see that the industries were growing and there is revolutions in the field of science. So all this growth had an effect on the people also. So the different concepts, the concepts of religion, God, as well as the concept of morality, humanity, everything got changed or modified in some way or other. People were confused about a lot of things. Who is God? What rituals to follow? What is the origin of men? So we see that this is an age of crisis, but it is also an age of exuberance. People had to make certain compromises. So these compromises are these compromises are on the field of religion, but also we see that life was getting a bit easier with all the industrial development, with all the machines and the growth in medical science and all those. So there we can see a compromise in people. Life was slowly getting more complicated. In Victorian period, Tennyson was an important figure. So Tennyson had a romantic hangover. Tennyson went on creating poetry like the poetry of the Romantic age. He was very popular during his time, but perhaps the nation was not prepared for someone like Robert Browning. So Robert Browning was not very popular during his lifetime. Later he gained popularity after his death. So Robert Browning brought something in English poetry which was never there. That is psychological realism. This is a highly character-driven genre where the entire poem is based on the inner thoughts and the motivations of a particular character. The poet not only just shows the actions of a particular character, he also goes on to explain why the particular character does what he does. He establishes a different way of writing poetry. So it is a way where the poet completely disappears. So the poetry comes from the subjective field to the objective field. This particular poem, My Last Duchess, is a speech by one person. This particular poem is called a dramatic monologue, and it is a speech by a particular person. But why is it dramatic? The speaker of this poem is caught into a dramatic situation. The entire speech shows details about the speaker's personalities and the speaker's thoughts, as well as certain physical actions are also suggested. And why is it a monologue? It is a monologue because there is a silent listener. Robert Browning is inspired by a true story from the Renaissance period, where the Duke of Ferrara, Alfonso II, married Lucretia, the daughter of the Grand Duke of Tuscany. Lucretia died under very suspicious scenario. In this poem, there is no name is mentioned because Browning wanted to have this poem and a universal approach. Let us get on with the poem. We see that at the beginning of the poem, we have the word Ferrara. So, just like a play, we see that the location of the poem is mentioned. The poem goes like this. That's my last duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Fra Pandolf's hand worked busily a day, and there she stands. The Duke is here talking to someone. The Duke was seeking the hand of Barbara, the 8th daughter of the Roman Emperor Ferdinand I, and the sister of the Count of Tyrol. The Count was in charge of arranging this marriage. So the chief entourage, Nicholas Martrus, was the courier. Martrus was presumably addressed by the Duke here. The painter of this painting, The Last Duchess, is Fra Pandolf, and the Duke mentions that he worked very hard to create this painting. So he wants the messenger to sit and watch the portrait as he speaks about it. Wilt, please, you sit and look at her? I said Fra Pandolf by design. Here, by design means with intention. So the Duke mentions Fra Pandolf's name with some intention in his mind. Never read Strangers Like You that pictured countenance, the depth and passions of this earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you. But I, and seemed as they would ask me, if they trust, how such a glance come there? So not the first are you to turn and ask thus. The Duke wanted to mention the name of Fra Pandolf, and he mentioned the name of Fra Pandolf with intention. So he is trying to tell the listener that why he is mentioning this name of the painter. He said that nobody saw this picture before and asked like why this duchess has such expression, this kind of expression on her face. So there is a certain kind of depth and passion in her look on her face. We know that when a person gives a particular kind of smile, or when that person is photographed or painted, it is assumed that the photographer or the painter had something to do with it. The Duke is conscious because he thinks that his wife is giving a particular expression in that picture. And he thinks that someone might ask why his wife is giving this kind of expression. But he thinks that people are particularly afraid of him, and that's why they cannot ask this. And he assumes that the silent listener whom he is showing this picture to is also having the same thought in his mind, as if he can read whatever people are thinking, like whatever is going on in people's mind. So that is why he is answering the questions like why the Duchess is smiling the way she is smiling. Fra Pandolf painted this particular painting and he worked really hard. Let's get on with the poem. So, it was not her husband's presence only called that spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek, Perhaps Frau Pandolf chanced to say, "Her mantle slaps over my lady's wrist too much." Or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. He is saying that this lady could smile like that in front of anyone, even in the absence of her own husband, that is her duke. The painter could see such an expression. Then the Duke goes on to say that the painter might have said something flirtatious, and maybe he has given her some compliment. He said that her mantle, that is her cloak, that is too much covering her wrist. So that brought a sense of blush on her face. The Duke also imagines that the painter must have told her that she has a beautiful hue on her throat which paint cannot capture alone. So all these compliments brought that spot of joy. So spot of joy is the blush in the cheeks. So all these compliments from the painter made the Duchess smile in a way which is very seductive and very suggestive. So the Duke thinks that all the people who look at that painting think, why the Duchess is smiling in that seductive way or in that suggestive way. So the Duke also says that he knows that the painter was not seriously flirting with the Duchess. He was just being courteous. But still, the Duchess still gave that particular expression on her face. Let us go on with this poem. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. So the Duke goes on to say that the Duchess was very easy to please. The Duchess smiled like at everything, as if she smiled little too much. She looked at everything and she started smiling. The Duchess was very easy to please. According to the Duke, the Duchess should not smile at everything, and the same smile she offers to the Duke as well. The Duke thinks that the Duchess's smile should vary from person to person, and the smile should have different degrees. Like she should smile more when she is in presence of her husband, and she should smile less when any other man compliments her or anything good happens to her. So the Duke thinks that her smile, the jovial smile, should be reserved only for him. So he is not very happy that she is so easy to please. So he goes on in depth and expresses his disgust or his disapproval at the Duchess's smile. So it was all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the delight in the west, the bough of cherry some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace. All and each would draw from her alike an approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men, good, but thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-year-old name with anybody's gift. So that is the Duke's problem. So the Duke explains further. He says that he has gifted the Duchess a brooch, and she showed a smile of appreciation. And the same smile she flashed when she saw a sunset. Maybe she was walking in the garden and some foolish person offers her a bunch of cherries, and she smiles in the same way. She also smiles in the same way when she rides her mule on the terrace. So here we can feel a little odd that that the Duchess rides her mule on the terrace. like who rides the mule on the terrace. Maybe the Duchess did not have much freedom to ride her mule elsewhere, so she had to ride her mule on the terrace. The Duke, we see that, had a very weird kind of problem. She smiled at the sunset, she smiled when she was riding her mule, and she smiled when someone brought her a bunch of cherries. So in the last case, still the Duke's thoughts might be a little justified because there is another human being involved. But what about the others? Like, why is he disapproving the smile at the sunset or when she was riding her mule? That's an odd kind of problem. So according to the Duke, the smile was a kind of crime. And he thinks that that smile should be directed at him or should be caused by him only. So he had like serious jealousy or serious disapproval whenever the Duchess smiled, and the reason was not him. The Duke thinks that the Duchess should be thankful and happy for receiving his 900-year-old name, his legacy. But the fact is that whenever someone did something for the Duchess, maybe offered her little help or offered her any gift, still she smiled in the same way she smiled at the Duke. This kind of justifying we see here for the disapproval he felt for the smile of his wife. She got this prestigious name, and she did not show any more gratefulness than she showed to that person who offered the bough of cherry. The Duke was furious. He could have simply said to the Duchess that he did not like the way she smiles at everybody or the way she is approving of whatever gift other people are presenting to her. The Duke could have easily talked it out with the Duchess. But did he do that? Let's see. Let's go on with the poem. Who would stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Trifling means like trivial affair, something which should not be mulled over much. Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say, just this or that in you disgust me. Here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. So as I said earlier, that the Duke could have easily talked it out with the Duchess. The Duke could have told the Duchess that, the way you smile at other people or upon receiving the gift from any other person, the way you smile, I do not like it. Or I do not like the fact that you smile in the same way at the other people, the way you smile with me. But the thing is that the Duke felt that it is stooping, like it is beneath his dignity to mull over some triflings, like some trivial matters, like as if to tell that the Duchess's smile disgust him. That is something so trivial, so he could not tell this to the Duchess. Maybe if he would have told this to the Duchess, she would have corrected her behavior. But he never said so. He did not want to argue with the Duchess. Also, he said that he cannot speak for a long time. He doesn't have the gift of speech, which is quite ironical because we see that he is speaking this huge monologue. So the Duke did not want to stoop or to bend low. that would hurt his ego. We see this, he is a very egoistical person, and who thought that whatever disgust he felt, the disapproval he felt about the smile of the Duchess would understand on her own and stop. So things went on like that, and as this thing went on like that, this feeling in the Duke grew. This feeling of jealousy grew in him. So what happened after that? Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her. But who passed without much the same smile? This grew. I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. The Duke here mentions that the Duchess obviously smiled at the Duke also. But the fact is that she smiled whenever some other people also passed her. She was never told by her husband that her smile was the problem. So this feeling of jealousy in the Duke continued to grow, and what he did, he gave some command. Here it is not mentioned what command he had given, but this is a bit suggestive. He gave some commands, some orders, and all smiles stopped altogether. This is suggestive. We don't know what order he gave, but we think that he had given the order of killing the Duchess, because the Duchess was no longer alive, because he was talking to someone who has come as a messenger for arranging the wedding between the Duke and another lady. There she stands, as if alive. As if alive. Noted, the Duchess is not alive anymore. Wilt please you rise? We'll meet the company below then. The portrait is now hanging from the wall and has the same smiling expression. But the Duke hated that smile. So he keeps that painting behind a curtain. At the beginning we saw that he drew the curtain to show that painting to the visitor. The Duchess's smile the Duke could not control. She would smile at everybody, at everyone's favor, at everyone's compliment and gift. Now the Duke has complete authority over the smile. He can control who can look at that smile. So he keeps that painting hidden behind a curtain, and whenever he chooses to show this to someone, he pulls that curtain open. He tells the visitor to rise and to meet the other people. So perhaps that listener is thunderstruck. So the speaker shakes him out. The speaker shakes him out of his dizziness and tells him to get up and meet the other people. And so we know that there are other people who are waiting downstairs. Count, your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretence of mine for dowry will be disallowed. Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed, at starting is my object. Here the word munificent means generosity. The Duke says that the messenger's count is a very generous person. So he is talking that he is talking about the count because he thinks that whatever dowry he would desire, the count will not deny that. But so he is now talking about the wedding plans. He stated that he does not want any dowry. He just wants his daughter. So here maybe the listener is trying to walk away faster, and probably he is going to warn the other people before they finalize things. So that is the time that the Duke stops the listener. Nay, we will go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, though a rarity, which claws of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. So we see that the listener is trying to hurry and go down to meet the other people before the Duke. So the Duke stops the listener and says that they will go together. So on the way out, the Duke points out at a bronze statue, and that is the statue of the sea god Neptune taming the seahorses. So it is a very rare statue, and he brought it from Innsbruck. Innsbruck is the capital of Austria's western state of Tyrol. We see that the Duke is a very authoritative figure, and he takes pride in the possession of the rare artifacts. So the artifacts are the statue, as he is showing, the statue of Neptune, as well as the painting of his Last Duchess. The statue, we see that another figure of control. The Duke is a very control freak kind of person. He wanted to control the smile of his late wife, and this statue is also another figure of control. So we do not get any response from the listener, but we definitely know what is going on in the listener's mind. So here the poem ends. So if we go to analyze this poem, we would have to know that this poem is a dramatic monologue. So why is it a dramatic monologue? And what kind of character do we have in the speaker? So let's see what is a dramatic monologue. Dramatic monologue is a combination of poetry as well as drama. So it is a combined genre. Drama and poetry are different ways of expression. Why are they different? Because drama is mimesis, that is showing rather than telling. Here the action is enacted. But poetry, on the other hand, is diegesis. Here the story is told by a narrator. So whenever there is a narrator, it is a diegesis. We can have mimesis in the diegesis. An example can be given of Satan's speech in Paradise Lost. But this particular poem is different. Here the Duke's speech is not capsuled in the general narrative. This entire monologue is enactable. Someone can enact this. And as this poem goes on, we can visualize everything, whatever is discussed, whatever is described. We think that we have a blend of mimesis as well as diegesis. So this is how Browning was taking poetry one step farther from the romanticism. So from the subjective field to the objective field. We see this kind of objectivity in Shakespeare as well. Browning is looking at the Duke the same way we as readers are looking at the Duke. The Duke is an independent character on the imaginary dramatic plane. To sum up, this particular poem is a dramatic monologue because of its objectivity, the dramatic action that is enacted, and the presence of a silent listener, and the gradual development of the story. We also see that there is a dramatic structure in this particular poem. So in a drama, we see that there are several parts: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. Here in this poem also we see different parts. So the exposition is when the introduction of painting happens. The rising action is the description of the Duchess and her smile and her reaction to all the other people. And the climax is the confession of a murder. The falling action is the reaction of the listener, the way he gets up and tries to go downstairs before the Duke. And the resolution is the Neptune statue, like the ultimate control, the authoritative figure. Neptune is the sea god controlling the seahorses, so which belongs in his territory. The Duchess here is also the territory of the Duke, and he tries to control the Duchess. So if he could not control her, he could turn her into an art and hang that piece of art in his gallery. What do we think about this character of this particular person? Because in a dramatic monologue, we delve deeper into one particular character. We see that this Duke is a psychopathic sadist person, and his crime is more chilling because he has no awareness of his crime, and he committed a crime and also tried to justify this crime, which is even more criminal. He did this to his last Duchess. Perhaps he will keep on doing this to his future wives. We never know. This Duke, the figure of this Duke is very dominating. So one of the theme of this poem is excessive control and manipulation. And another theme we see is the objectification of women. The Duke wants his wife's world to be revolved around him and him only. So he is insecure and he just wants to control his wife and thinks that his wife is an object whom he can control and he can manipulate the way he wants. Who is insecure about the smile at a sunset? We see the act of domestic violence here, and this poem is, I think, still relevant because of the fact that in the Victorian period there was this domestic violence, and even today this domestic violence still exists. So women are in our society also judged by their smiles, by their clothes, by the people they hang out with, everything. Women are always judged. The way the Duchess was judged, similar way the women in our society, even in this century, is also judged. The Duchess is painted on the wall, so we can say that the Duke's wife is displayed on the wall. So when she was alive, wasn't she displayed already? Was she more than an object then? Here uses this emphatic pronoun my for conveying the message that the Duchess belongs to him. There is a sense of possession we can see here. Robert Browning perhaps could detect all these problems about women, and he noted all these problems in this particular poem. Other themes of this poem are social status, art and elitism, and aristocracy. Aristocracy is presented as a burden, as a liability. So this is something that makes you less of a human. Browning was full of condemnation of these aristocratic people who were hypocrites. These aristocrats made the women commodity in the society. So Browning was writing all these when there was a queen on the throne. This is quite ironic because a queen was on the throne and this was the period of extreme conservatism as well as extreme experimentation. So if we look at the meter of this poem, we see that this poem is written in rhyming couplet and in iambic pentameter. So this iambic pentameter is a meter which are usually used in the love sonnets. So Browning is using this particular meter in exposing the criminality and the inner psychology of this criminal. So I hope you have enjoyed this explanation, and keep an eye to my channel to get more explanation of poems as well as other literary pieces as well as literary theories. Thank you very much.